Good morning, pipe smokers. It's about 9:30 a.m. here in Nottingham. This is David Russell Mosley coming to you with some more pipe reflections by the lake. Today I'm smoking still my little basket pipe, but I'm smoking some Three Nuns in it. I rather like the Three Nuns blend. It's got this kind of brown sugar smell in the bag. Here in the UK, we can only get it in pouches. We can't get it in tins and the medallions the way you do in the US. Yes, it's got this kind of brown sugar scent to it in the bag, and then it smokes really nicely. Just a few heads up before I get into my reflections here by the lake at Highfield Park, out near the University of Nottingham. My subscribers can look forward to a whole host of videos from me today. We've got so many fantastic contests going in the YouTube pipe community right now that I'd be remiss if I didn't at least enter some of them. So you'll be seeing lots from me today. I also just want to say thank you so much. I've only been part of this community for a little over a week now, and I've already got 40 subscribers. I requested video responses in my last video, and I got one more than I thought I would, which is one. So I'm really pleased about that. And check out Mailboy Lou's page. He's only got 2 pipe presenting videos so far. His first one, so far as I understand it, was his response to my last post. So really humbled by that. So in my last post I talked about our dependence on the digital and all that kind of stuff. And so today I just wanted to take the time to talk a little bit about one way that I've attempted to live more simply, more in the regard to my dependence on the digital. I think you'll probably see that what I do isn't necessarily simple in and of itself, but that it's got the kind of complexity that I enjoy. And it's a simple kind of complexity, if that makes any sense. It's, well, I'll just tell you about it. I mentioned briefly in my last video about the number of journals that I use. And so today I just wanted to kind of walk you through each of my journals, show you what kind of journals I use, talk to you about what I use them for, and then I'd love to hear from you in the comments at the very least. I know it's too much to ask for a video response without some kind of a prize. And so one day I'll do a real contest, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments at the very least. So the first journal I want to show you is what I call my pocket notebook. Now, I got the idea to do a pocket notebook from a really quite interesting website that I think the pipe smoking community could really get behind, and it's called The Art of Manliness. Is the name of it kind of functions as an online men's magazine, so it's called The Art of Manliness. The website is artofmanliness.com. I'll make sure to put that down in the bucket. And they did a whole post on why use pocket notebooks, famous men in history who have used pocket notebooks, even gave you some excerpts out of those pocket notebooks. So this is my current one. I've already gone through one. basically, I keep this in my back pocket, or when I'm wearing a suit coat, which is often. I'll keep it in one of the many pockets that I've gotten there, and basically I use it to write down spontaneous thoughts. Sometimes I like to pretend that I am a poet, and so I'll write down a poem or two in here. I like to write stories for children sometimes, and so I'll write down ideas that I've got for that in here, and really just anything. Sometimes when I'm out and I'm reading and I find a quote I like, I'll initially put it in here before transferring into a different notebook, which I'll show you here in a second. But it's my first notebook, pocket notebook. This is one I think no one should be without. I think even for pipe smokers this could be particularly helpful, because you could write down notes that you have about tobaccos and pipes, and pipe accessories that you've had that you didn't like, and that way you've got something tangible, something to hold in your hand, something to put on a bookshelf, and something that you can go back to and reference, particularly for doing your videos, if you're reviewing a tobacco that you've smoked before, and aren't smoking for the first time in the video. I think this could be really helpful. So this is my first one. The next one I'll show you, and these are in no particular order. Sorry, my screen keeps dimming on me since I don't have any power out here. This is my research journal. I keep a band around it because I like to keep loose pieces of paper in here. Sometimes I tape them in, but so this is where I keep all my research notes. I don't know if I'll be able to kind of see that. Keep all my research notes in here, and so when I'm reading texts for my research, for my PhD or for journal articles I'm working on, I'll keep notes in here. Sometimes I'll write down whole quotations that I want to use. Sometimes I'll just note the page number and write down a quick thought on it, either to refer back to the book or because I don't need any more than a quick thought to write what I want to write. I'm actually in the process right now of indexing this. Now I'm only about halfway through it, but I thought it would be better to get started on indexing it now than waiting till I've filled the almost 200 pages in here to index it that way. Right. Next one. Alright, this is the one. Another thing that I recently read about on The Art of Manliness was this idea of having an invisible cabinet. Basically, it was based on this really kind of strange New Agey idea that you pick a group of, for men, it was a group of men that you want to emulate, whose lives you find inspiring, and that you want to be like. And so the idea was to collect that group in your mind, and then hold imaginary conversations with them, asking them to teach you the kinds of things that they were known for. I found that to be a bit strange. Now that might work for some of you, and if it does, excellent. For me, I found it didn't, so I purchased another notebook, and in it, I keep all my notes from books that I read either on or about or by the men that I want to emulate. So I've got stuff on J.R.R. Tolkien in here. I've got, well, for the most part, I think that's all I've really gotten here so far. But I plan on doing things on C.S. Lewis, Theodore Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, a man named Alexander Campbell, who is just absolutely a very brilliant man and a very hard-working one. Lived in the 19th century, ran a farm, ran a mill on the farm, milled other people's grain, started a post office in what became West Virginia, was part of starting a shipping dock I mean, the man did everything, and then went and preached and worked in churches and founded churches. I mean, he just did public debates. I mean, he just did it all. And so, that notebook I use for writing down what I think about these men and how I might want to emulate them. I apologize now as we reach the 10-minute mark. This is going to be one of my longer videos. Here, I have my my devotional journal. I haven't mentioned this up to this point, not explicitly anyway, but I am a Christian. I study theology here at the University of Nottingham, and so I find it very important as a student of theology of Christian theology, to be immersed in not only the Bible, but in the holy and spiritual writings of others throughout our tradition. So every morning when I get up at about 5, I read Scripture, and then I'll read some selections out of one of my professors called Spiritual Masters. And so right now I'm reading through the homilies of a man named Pseudo-Macarius. Long story on who he is, probably lives from around the 5th, 6th century. And, yeah, it was just a very, very intelligent man, and understood how humans work. So that's my devotional journal. Right, next up, this one looks an awful lot like the second to last journal I just showed you. This is called a Commonplace notebook. And in this, I keep poems, and as I noted earlier, sometimes I'll use my pocket notebook to catch snippets of texts that I like, quotes that I like from books of fiction that I read. And so I'll put those in here, not only so that I can have ready access to them in book form, but actually it's my intention to memorize everything I put in here. And so I'm currently going back through some of the things that I'd already written in here and attempting to memorize and rememorize some of those things. I'm working on Keats's bright star, I would I were as steadfast as thou art. Again, I'd memorized it once before, but I've lost, so I'm trying to work back over that again. I find this very useful. I think men, well, I think all people ought to commit more things to memory. You know, back in the 18th century, even. And on into the 19th century, public speakers, and really this dates back all the way to the time of Plato, and Aristotle, and later Cicero, teaching on rhetoric, would memorize poems and selections from books so that they could quote them almost extemporaneously in their speeches. And so I find this a helpful way of keeping those at hand. Now, it does take away from the necessity to memorize them because I can write them down, but I think it is still helpful. Right, just a few more to go through, I promise, and then we'll be done. Now, this is my Moleskine notebook. This is just my personal journal. Sometimes I'll record short essays on things that I'm thinking about, sometimes just what's happened during the day. You know, this is my thoughts journal. Sometimes I'll take longer notes on, say, short stories I'm trying to write or something along those lines, but mostly this is for my thoughts on life, politics, reading, all that kind of stuff will go typically in here. All right, last journal I'll show you is this monstrosity. Now, one thing I've really liked since I've moved here to the UK is that they have more of these bound, tall notebooks as opposed to the spiral-bound ones that we tend to have in the States, and for relatively cheap prices. This is what I call my other research journal. In this, when I'm reading things and maybe think I'm going to do a blog on kind of my routine for the morning today at some point. So I'll write more about this there if you want to check that out, and I'll post a link to that in the video. But in here, I like to read broadly, and I like to read other things that aren't always directly relevant to what I'm researching for my thesis or for journal articles. And so whatever I'm reading in that regard goes into this notebook. And it's great. It's big. It's got those kind of cream-colored pages. I know it looks like a lot of it's blank right now, but you know, I keep usually large quotations or kind of my synthesis at the. I tend to try and read a chapter a day out of whatever book's going in here, and so you know, my thoughts on that at the end of the chapter will often go in here. Alright, so that's it. I have a lot of journals and notebooks. I also use other forms of paper to do other things like writing and stuff. So what do you think? Am I crazy for the amount of journals and notebooks I use, or is there something to it? I think there's something to it. What about you? Do you journal? Do you take handwritten notes for things over and against typing them on a computer? Let me know. Let me know. Well, that's it for this episode. Farewell, my friends. Live in blessedness. And when you sit in peace with your pipe, think of me.